Okay, class. So today we will be going over the exploration age. We'll be looking at Portugal and discussing how the Portuguese pretty much established and led the way into the exploration age. So the objective is the students will be able to understand why Europeans wanted to explore the world. And then we have a main idea. Our main idea is in the 1400s, the Portuguese started a new era of exploration that was fostered by advancements in technology. So let's go ahead and get started. We have 3 essential questions, and you guys are going to want to pause this video so that you guys can write down these 3 essential questions. This will coincide with our assignment for today. So write these questions, answer them as we go along through the PowerPoint, and your assignment will be very similar, and it will focus on these 3 questions. So go ahead and pause and write down these questions. All right, so hopefully you paused and you wrote down those questions, so I'll say welcome back. So let's go ahead and get started. So driving European exploration. Now, let's key in on the word exploration. To explore means to go out on a journey to discover things. So that's what the Europeans were doing, primarily the country of Portugal, or the Portuguese people. Europeans had several reasons to explore the world. Many Europeans wanted to travel to Asia for spices without having to travel through the Middle East and North Africa. So let me go ahead and start my timer. So here's the question. And here's the question that I will pose that anybody think about when we're talking about this topic. So why didn't the Europeans want to travel through Asia or through the, I'm sorry, why didn't the Europeans want to travel through the Middle East to get to Asia anymore? So and we'll get into this later, but at that time, Muslims control Asia, and in order to travel through Asia, you had to pay a tax. And so the Europeans wanted to maximize their profits and get around that tax. So exploration was one of the things that they wanted to do. Christians in Europe looked to convert indigenous people in other places to the faith of Christianity. They saw that Islam was fastly spreading through Asia and Africa. They wanted to spread Christianity the same way. And then the explorer Marco Polo wrote a book about his travels through Asia, and it made that exploration very popular because he highly exaggerated things in a book. So at that time, there wasn't TV, so people were entertained through books. So after Marco Polo wrote his book, many people wanted to become explorers. Viking sailors reached North America. Many people believe that Christopher Columbus was the first European to set sail and reach the Americas. This isn't true. Here's the facts. The Vikings were the first Europeans to make contact with North America. They traveled from Scandinavia, a peninsula that includes the present-day country of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The Vikings raided countries throughout Eurasia, but they also developed large trading networks. So they were known for raiding other places, but they also traded and documented where they traveled. All right, so one of our first people that we will learn about today is Leif Erikson. Leif Erikson, he's the son of Eric the Red. In the year of 1000, he was sailing from Norway when strong winds blew his ship off course and carried his ship all the way to the North American coast. Erikson and his crew landed on Labrador Peninsula in present-day Canada. Excuse me, guys. The Viking also sailed south to the island of Newfoundland. The Viking left North America because of constant attacks by Native Americans. So one question that's going to be posed, why didn't the Vikings explore and conquer the Americas, is because they couldn't fend off and they were losing battles to the Native Americans. The Native Americans ran them out of the Americas. Now, the other person that we're going to look at is Prince Henry the Navigator. Prince Henry the Navigator never explore. He wasn't an explorer. He wasn't someone that got on the ship like Christopher Columbus and explored all of these places. He was pretty much the mastermind and the financer behind the country of Portugal actually jumping into and leading navigation. So he was responsible for making Portugal a leader in exploration. Prince Henry the Navigator was responsible for advances that would make exploration. In the early 1400s, Prince Henry built an observatory and founded a school of navigation to teach better methods of sailing. He also paid explorers to travel the west coast of Africa. So when you look at it, he's responsible for it because he invested money into the people who were actually looking to travel. So one of the things that's going to make traveling easy at this time is that sailing technology improved. New forms of technology played a major role in exploration. European ship captains in the 1400s experimented with new sailing vessels and new navigating tools. And we will be going over some of those. And the first one we're going to talk about is magnetic compass. And if you guys don't know, a compass is something that's used to tell direction. So before compasses were created, people just used the stars to travel. You could tell direction by mapping the North Star. You know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so you could use the sun. They would do things like that, but they began to develop technology that helped them travel. Another one, the Astrologe. This is a device that enables navigators to lean their ships to track their ship's location by charting the position of the stars. So once again, you have astronomy in here. Astronomy is going to help travelers. So the stars, you have a form of technology that helped them map the stars. Okay, the next one we have is a caravel. And the caravel is pretty much a small ship that was very stealthy and moved at a faster pace because it had sails and it had certain things on it that just made the travel easier. We also have a sextant. A sextant is a double reflecting navigation instrument that measures the angular distance between two visible objects. The primary use of a sextant is to measure the angle between an astronomical object and the horizon for the purpose of navigation. And then the last one, we have a map called the Mercator Projection. And this type of map was introduced in 1569 by Herodotus Mercator. This projection is widely used for navigation charts because any straight line on a Mercator projection map is a line of constant true bearing that enables a navigator to plot a straight line of course. So now what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at actual travelers that opened up routes to new places. So the first person we have is Bartholomew Diaz. So Diaz led an expedition from Portugal, right here on the map. Portugal is west of Spain. So he started from Portugal and he traveled all the way down here to the southern tip of Africa. And when he got there, he named it the Cape of Good Hope. And he wanted to travel and try to go all the way around to Asia, but he was running low on goods and food and stuff like that. So his crew didn't want to do it, so they forced him back. But he was the first person to travel far south and was able to mark the southern tip of Africa. That's Bartholomew Diaz. The next person we have is Vasco de Gama. Vasco de Gama. He was sponsored by King Manuel of Portugal. And so Vasco da Gama was able to basically take the same route that we mentioned before, and he was able to take it further and to go all the way to India. He did this in 1497 AD. So he was the person that reached the Europeans' goal of making it to India. So the Europeans had the goal of making it to India because before these explorers they were normally traveling eastward all the way through the Middle East to India. Whenever you did that, you had to pay taxes on your goods whenever you traveled through Muslim territories. Muslims would allow the Portuguese and other Europeans to travel through their lands. You just have to pay a tax. And a lot of the Europeans didn't like that because they had ill feelings towards Muslims. But Muslims viewed Europeans as people of the book, and so their feelings weren't as ill and as harsh at that time. So let's look at Vasco de Gama. When de Gama reached the Indian port of Calcutta, he ended up meeting with traders, and he was surprised because many of the Indians and those traders that he worked with were able to speak Portuguese. And that's because they had already been trading. So you guys can read this, and that's pretty much what I'm saying on this slide. So there were a few results of these explorations when you look at Portugal. Now, when Portugal hit the west coast of Africa, they actually began to travel within Africa. And the reason that they wanted to travel within Africa is because, as previously stated when we did our last assignment, Africa was rich in gold and they already had slaves. So the Portuguese went into Africa and they engaged in African slave trade. So what they did, they actually went into Africa, got Africans, and traded them throughout Europe in the African slave trade. The Portuguese sent African slaves to Europe and the islands in the Atlantics, where they lived and worked under brutal conditions. So one of the long-term results of exploration is going to be the expansion of the African slave trade. Something that must be noted is that the empires of Mali, Songhai, and some of the other major empires of the West Coast, well, on the West Coast of Africa, they were already engaged in slavery in Africa. So they were having wars. They were invading places, and whenever they invaded a place and they beat a place in war, they took the people and held them as slaves. So what's going to happen is when the Portuguese goes into Africa, they basically begin to trade some of those territories for slaves and gave them goods, including different weapons, alcohol, and different spices that the Europeans had been using that hadn't been introduced to Africa yet. So that concludes our presentation. Go ahead and complete your assignment using this presentation. You guys have a great day.